The command-based operating system. Okay. It is an operating system, right? So what is an operating system, by the way? Yeah, what is an operating system? What is an operating system? ఇప్పుడు మనకి ఇక్కడ ఒక సిస్టమ్ ఉందండి, ల్యాప్టాప్, let's say a device, and there is no operating system with it. Is it possible for us to open Facebook or open any browser? Right? Why? Because to interact with the hardware resources, we need a system software. A system software is nothing but an operating system. Right. So now I'm able to show you this picture of this website, and I'm able to log in, and I'm using this mouse pad, keyboard, everything, just because there is an operating system that is acting as a bridge between me and this hardware device. Right. So Linux is one such operating system. మనకు తెలిసిన ఇంకా operating systems ఏమున్నాయి? What are the operating systems that you know? Windows, of course. Yeah. Linux. Eh? Ubuntu is a flavor of Linux, but another operating system. Unix. There are three categories of operating systems, which are Windows, Linux, and Unix operating systems. So now let's understand what's an operating system in detail. Say, friends, let's say, for example, I purchased some, say, desktop, and the desktop has some hardware resources, like let's say, this is a hardware layer. Here we got a hardware layer where my desktop has configuration of, let's say, some 6 CPUs, 16 GB of RAM, and maybe some, let's say, 1 terabyte of hard drive. Right. So when there is only hardware, it's not possible for us to interact with that machine. That's where what we're doing. We need an operating system, and you can, install any operating system of your choice, like a Windows or Linux operating system on top of it. But mostly when we are purchasing laptops or anything, we are getting the Windows as the operating system by default, right? So anywhere you go, you find on the machines, mostly your friends' laptops are everywhere. You're finding Windows as the most frequently used operating system, right? But there is Linux. Let's understand what is Linux and Unix, and when we use Linux operating systems and where we use Unix operating systems too. Okay. On top of a Windows operating system, what you're doing now, if I want to prepare my resume, what we do on top of Windows, you are installing application programs, right? Like Microsoft Word application. Likewise, if you want to browse the internet, you need a browser. So installing something called a Chrome browser, right? You want to do some online calling. You need a software, like say some Skype, right? So whatever the softwares that we are installing on top of an operating system, those are all application programs. And this is a system software. System software is the software that you interact with the system, and on top of the system software, you're installing application programs, right? So an operating system is nothing but it is a system software that is acting as a bridge between you, the user, and the computer hardware. Without an operating system, it's not getting possible for us to interact with the machine, right? So now let's understand what is Linux. But before we understand the Linux operating system, first we should know what exactly is an operating system called Unix. Yeah, back in 1970s, but back then there is an operating system that was developed, which is a Unix operating system. Okay, Unix operating system was developed back in 1970s for some purpose. What is that purpose? Back in 1970s only, this operating system was developed, and the main purpose of this Unix operating system is to to get a feature which is multi-user and multitasking. Multi-user and multitasking. So what is multi-user and what is multitasking? Yeah, friends, any idea? Multi-user, multitasking. Now, let's say all of us, we got, say, for example, net banking applications, right? So we all got a bank account with HDFC, and now one of you are doing a transaction. You're sending money to your family, or you're withdrawing, sorry, you're paying some bills. At the same time, I'm also connected through my net banking and I'm doing my transaction. Or are we asked like first I should, when I'm doing transaction, you should all wait. Is there anything as such? Or all we are doing, what's the thing simultaneously? Yeah, friends. Okay, bank application open చేసి you are doing a transaction, I'm doing a transaction. With your account, you're doing it. With my account, I'm doing it. And there, multiple users are using that application, and there is no challenge at all, right? So for such functionality, this operating system was actually developed, multi-user and multitasking, and for continuous long-running activities. For continuous long-running activities, this operating system Unix was developed back in 1970s, and mostly server level. Yeah, please. Mostly for servers. Mostly for high-end servers, they were using this operating system back then. But the problem with this is this operating system runs only on some specific hardware. It's not meant to run on every hardware. macOS చూసారా? macOS is the best example of Unix. MacBook ఉందా ఎవరికైనా? Anyone got MacBook? Okay. So macOS, in a MacBook, what operating system runs? macOS. Now, if you go to any store, any laptop store, and if you ask, I need a HP laptop with macOS, are they offering us anything as such? Or if you go to, let's say, some mobile store and ask them, I need a Samsung phone with iOS. Are there any instances where we get a Samsung phone with iOS? No, because that operating system is meant to run only on some specific hardware. Likewise, this Unix operating system was meant to run only on some specific hardware. Like there was a Unix version called Sun Solaris that runs only on Sun specific hardware, Sun Microsystem specific hardware. There is again a Unix operating system back then called HP UX that runs only on HP specific hardware. Yes, and again, there was an operating system called, say, IBM AIX, and that IBM AIX runs only on IBM specific hardware. And next, now the best example is Mac OS. Mac OS that runs only on Apple specific hardware. Yeah, Mac OS runs only on Apple specific hardware. So now let's say, friends, I'm willing to start a bank. I'm planning to start a banking business where all my employees, they should do transactions. Let's say this is a bank, and here some customers are getting in and they're depositing money, and all that should get into some central server. So I need a central server where multiple users are connected. Say this is my central server in a bank. There is a central server, and in this central server, there is a software running, some HDFC bank banking software. Now all my customers are connected to it, and all my employees, bank employees, are connected to it. And now, చూస్తారు కదండి మీరు బ్యాంక్ వెళ్ళగానే, what you find, there are a lot of tellers here, cashiers sitting here, and what do? They do deposits, withdrawals, and everything, and they are all connected to this central server, right? All of them, they are connected to a central server, and what's happening there? They're doing all their transactions by connecting to the software over. So for one user, there is no separate server. For another user, there is no separate server. All these users are connected to one single server. Now, in such servers, you find the operating systems that are being widely used are not Windows machines, but mostly you find Unix operating systems. Unix operating system. కాకపోతే ఇప్పుడు ఆ Unix operating system నేను setup చేయాలనుకోండి. If I want to set up a Unix server here, it's becoming very costly for me, because I have to purchase hardware from either Sun Solaris or HP UX or IBM or only Apple. Of course, Mac, let's keep it out of the box for now. So I have to purchase hardware as well as software from. The hardware is way too costly from these organizations. Software operating system is also way too costlier, and thereby what's happening? I have to invest more and more and more money in this in setting up a banking server. right? So now let's say I got more money. I'm a huge bank. I'm investing. But let's say small scale, let's say industries or let's say some startup companies. Let's say we all wanted to start up a business where we need such server. Now what to do? We don't have enough capital to purchase that entire hardware and operating system. So that's where what happened is, friends, there is a gentleman by the name Linus Torvalds. Linus Torvalds. And what he did is he adapted this Unix operating system. And from that Unix operating system, he got a core component called a kernel. ప్రతి ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ లో ఒక కోర్ కాంపోనెంట్ ఉంటుందండి. ఇట్స్ కాల్డ్ as a kernel. This kernel, what it does, it takes what say instructions from some applications and interact with the hardware. So now this Linus Torvalds, what he did, ఈ Unix operating system అనేది, if it is Sun Solaris, it's expecting only Sun hardware. If it is HP UX, it's expecting only HP hardware. If it is IBM AX, it's expecting only IBM hardware. So he made the kernel of Linux, that Unix operating system compatible to any hardware. He made that kernel, he made changes to that kernel software, and he made that kernel to work on any hardware. And what he did, he made this kernel open source, meaning anybody can use that kernel and create their own operating system. So thereby what happened there? There came a byproduct from Unix, which is nothing but a Linux operating system. Which this kernel, we call it as a Linux kernel. And from that kernel, since he made it open source, anybody can download that kernel and create their own operating system. అందుకే మీకు ఏమవుతుందంటే లైనక్స్ లో చూడండి, ఉబంటు అన్నారు సమ్, ఉబంటు, సెంటోస్, రెడ్ హ్యాట్, ఫెడోరా, ఓపెన్ సోర్స్, Alpine Linux. There are different flavors of Linux, right? Why is that? Means this gentleman is Linus Torvalds. He made it open source to everyone across the globe. ఎవరైనా బై ప్రొడక్ట్ ఈ కెర్నల్ ని డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకుని దే కెన్ క్రియేట్ దేర్ ఓన్ ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ అవుట్. And thereby there came a lot of Linux operating systems which run on any hardware type. The best example is your mobile phones. Are we using Android phones? How many of us using Android phones here? I think all of us, right? Majority of all of us. Android is a flavor of Linux. And that's where what's happening here. Some of you might be using a Samsung phone with some hardware type. Some of you might be using Oppo phone, Vivo, right? Some of our processor might be Snapdragon. Some of our processors might be MediaTek processor, Helios, right? And different hardware configurations, but still we are all able to consume the operating system successfully. Why is that? Because a Linux kernel is compatible to run on any hardware type. Unix అనేది okay, some particular hardware మీద run on, but coming to Linux, it runs on any hardware, right? And it's free, by the way. You can consume it for free without paying any money. That is where companies started adapting to Linux operating systems. Why is that? Whenever you work on any projects, the very first thing that you got to do is get a cost-effective solution to your problems, right? So, if you have a Unix operating system proposed, the company have to invest more at the operating system level, at the hardware level. But if you propose a Linux operating system, let's say on these all machines, I can install Linux machine for free. Nobody asks you why have you installed it, or what is why did you install Linux? Nothing as such. Audits jarigina kuda, no one considers licensing for that Linux machine, because Linux operating systems, most of them are available for free. Okay, this is the reason. Where learn Linux operating systems. Yeah, Tim. So now, online candidates, any questions? Okay, so now let's understand what exactly is a kernel. Kernel, I'll give you some clarity. Let's say this is my laptop, and here I'm preparing my resume. Okay, I'm preparing a resume, and for this laptop there is a printer attached. This is my printer. Now, friends, what happens is you prepared a Word document. Prepared your resume. This is your resume, and you want to print this resume. Microsoft Word document. Resume. And you said Control plus P, right? Control plus P, you just send an instruction, control B, document. Now what happens is you are requesting for a printer. Now we know that our laptop has some layers. What are they? The first one is the hardware layer. This is the hardware layer. And on top of it, I got an operating system. On top of that operating system, I got this Windows application Word installed. This is my, what's say, Windows operating system. Windows operating system. This is the hardware layer. Hardware layer to which your printer is connected to some USB port of your laptop. Right. So now when you raise a request here, this document you want it to print. Now what happens is between between the operating system and the hardware layer, there is a core component called a kernel. Every operating system has this, friends. Every operating system has this core component called a kernel. Now, what happens is when you're raising a request, this document is requesting for this printer. Now, first things first, this document raises a request to operating system, and the operating system raises a request to the kernel. And what a kernel does, it interacts with the hardware layer to find whether the printer is available or not. If it is available, you find a document getting printed. Let's say if the printer is turned off, then what happens here? You get a message, the printer is not available. Why is that? Because the kernel identified the printer is offline and gave the same information back to this document. And thereby what's happening, we're getting here, unable to find the printer, something like that, right? So this kernel for Unix runs only on some specific hardware. It's not meant to run on any hardware. ఈ కెర్నల్ ప్రోగ్రామ్ ని లైనస్ టోర్వల్డ్స్ అనేది డెవలప్ చేశారు. He made it work on any hardware type, right? And the best part is he made it open source. ఆ కెర్నల్ అది ఏం చేశాడంటే he made it open source, meaning anybody can use it. Like say for example, friends, ఇప్పుడు మీరు ఫుడ్ డెలివరీ కంపెనీస్ చూస్తుంటారు కదా. Sorry, food delivery companies. Let's say if you take some pizza bike. ఇక్కడ pizza bike చూద్దామండి, let's say. So here, when you look at this bike, what impression are you getting? Bike Bajaj వాడిది అనిపిస్తుందా మనకి, లేదా పిజ్జా హట్ కి సంబంధించిన బైక్ అనుకుందాం. It's a bike that belongs to Pizza Hut. We are not looking into the underlying aspects from which company the bike is manufactured. Likewise, you take another bike. Let's go with another bike. Let's say some bike here. Again, even here, what's happening? Just by looking at this logo, you're saying that it's a bike that belongs to Domino's. You're not looking into the underlying aspects from which company this bike was manufactured. Similarly, when Linus Torvalds, when he made this kernel open source, ఈ kernel open source చేసేసరికి ఏమైందంటే different communities across the globe, they started adding their own branding and they started creating their own operating systems out of it. So Ubuntu operating system is one such, right? So మీరు operating system కి వెళ్తే you forget about the kernel is coming from Linus Torvalds. You just get an idea that this is an operating system from Ubuntu. Likewise, CentOS. When you look at CentOS, you get an idea that this is a CentOS Linux machine. That is it. We are forgetting about this kernel is coming from the kernel developed by Linus Torvalds. Likewise, Fedora, Red Hat, OpenSUSE. There are different flavors of Linux available, which are all the byproducts coming from the kernel written by Linus Torvalds. And what am I trying to say here is, what are the commands and all that are compatible for this kernel? The same commands do work here, because they're all coming from the same tree, same family, right? So if you know one version of Linux, so Linux lo hundreds of flavors unnayandi. Let me go with the distrowatch.com. Distrowatch. If you go to this site, see there are hundreds and hundreds of flavors of Linux operating system available. If you find here, what rank చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళాడు ఇక్కడ. See first MX Linux setup, Linux Mint, Endeavor OS. ఇవన్నీ కూడా, these are all the different flavors of Linux coming from different tech communities across the globe. మీకు ఒక్క Linux flavor మీరు మంచిగా, rest of all the other flavors you can easily manage to do. But there will be a difference. meaning there will be some slight differences, but not much, because the core on which all these different operating systems are built on the same kernel. So mostly majority of Linux operating systems behave the same. Commands చాలా వరకు మీకు ఈ Linux operating systems అన్నిట్లో ఒకటే ఉంటుందండి. Okay, so there are two things that we got to learn when we are evolving as when we are getting into the field of IT. And mark my words, you don't regret for this. First, Linux నేర్చుకోవాలి. No matter you're from full stack or you're from Java background or you're into only development, okay, no matter from whatever platform you are, learn Linux operating system and Python programming. ఇవి రెండు మీరు నేర్చుకోవాలండి. మీనింగ్ no matter whether you're into DevOps or whatever, you should know these two. మీరు ఐటీలో ఎక్కువ టైం ఎవాల్వ్ అవ్వాలి అనుకుంటే మాత్రం డెఫినెట్లీ దీస్ టూ ఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు హెల్ప్ యూ లాట్, రైట్? సో మీ ఫ్రీ టైంలో ఏం చేస్తుంటారంటే జస్ట్ గో త్రూ ద ఇంటర్నెట్. ఇట్స్ అ host for a lot of resources to go through. Right? So go through the internet, identify some what's say Linux related commands, learn them. Of course, we are going to give you some overview this entire week, but there is no end to any learning process, right? So keep yourselves updated, learning Linux and Python, no matter whatever the technology you are from, machine learning, data science, big data, data analytics, DevOps, right? Full stack, and so on. Every IT professional should know these two skills, should have a very good command over these two skills, right? So this entire week we'll learn Linux. So you get a very good insights about Linux operating system from us for this entire week. Yeah. So now got the point. What is Linux and what is why we use Linux operating system? Linux is free. It runs on any hardware type, right? So now, if I want to start a banking business, now what I do is I identify. Let's say I'm setting up a server here, a central server. ఇప్పుడు నేనేం చేస్తున్నానంటే అండి ఇక్కడ I don't need to purchase hardware only from IBM. I don't need to purchase hardware only from Sun Solaris. I'm purchasing hardware which is cheaper. Let's say some Western Digital one only. Let's say I'm purchasing some 2 terabyte of hard drive, right? And from Seagate or let's say from Samsung, I'm purchasing some 32 GB of RAM, right? Because when compared, these are coming for lesser price. I'm purchasing them and I'm clubbing all of them as one huge server. And in that server, I install a Linux operating system. And now I attach all my employees' machines to that server. And what happens? Now Linux also supports multi-user multitasking. ఎందుకని? Because Linux is derived from Unix. So Linux is derived from Unix. So all the best features of Unix are available in Linux too. So now I don't need to rely only on some dedicated hardware, and I don't need to purchase I don't need to purchase an operating system because Linux is free. In కొనాల్సిన దాంట్లో ఇక్కడ హార్డ్వేర్ ఒకటే కొనుక్కోవాలి, right? And all the best features are available to me. Like Linux is very best for multi-user multitasking. So multiple users can connect to Linux operating system at the same time and carry out all their operations simultaneously. ఇక్కడ ఒక బ్యాంక్ కి మీరు వెళ్ళారు and you are depositing money, and in the next counter the other person is withdrawing cash, and the next to the other person there is one more guy who is doing some insurance related activities. All of them are connected to the same. Yeah, please. All of them are connected to the same server where a banking application is run. And to set this infrastructure up, I'm not getting charged. In terms of operating system, I'm not getting charged much. In terms of hardware, I'm not getting charged because at my own at my own convenience, I purchased the hardware and I created an operating system here. Okay, so this is about Linux operating system, friends. And let's now talk about what did we say? Linux is an operating system. Let's take the definition of Linux. Take a note of this when you're asked what is Linux operating system in the interviews. Just take a note of Linux is an open source and community developed operating system for servers, mainframes, mobile devices, and embedded devices. This is the definition of a Linux operating system. Linux operating system is an open source and community developed operating system for servers, mainframes, mobile devices, and embedded devices. Okay, just take a note of this, friends, because very important. If not, take a picture. Either is fine. Okay, Linux is an open source and community developed operating system. So, what is open source? Let's understand. What is the meaning of open source nature? Open source meaning here, you are not supposed to only consume the operating system, but also you can create a byproduct of it. Now, let's say I downloaded a Linux operating system from the internet. This is a Linux operating system software. Linux operating system software. Now, I install it on my Windows machine. Say, friends, I'm installing it on my laptop. And now, what am I doing is I'm adding my own changes to that Linux operating system. Yeah, add your own changes. And now, what you can do is you can create your own product out of it. Create your own operating system out of it and publish it as, let's say, CB Linux. So, for example, Career Bridge Linux. So, what we are doing, we are getting Linux for free from the internet. We are customizing it, adding our own changes, and we are again promoting it as our own Linux operating system. Open source meaning you're not only free to consume it, but also you can change it. So there are a lot of open source tools in DevOps. What are they? Tomcat is free, open source. Maven is free, open source, right? Docker is free, open source. Next, Jenkins is free, open source. Terraform is open source, right? So a lot of tools are open source, meaning you can consume them for free without paying any license. And if you have enough knowledge, you can change those those softwares and promote them as your own operating systems, right? So now Linux is open source and community developed. Meaning, what is community developed? Community developed operating system meaning that different communities across the globe, like Canonical, right, CentOS, there are different communities which are developing constantly different versions of Linux, right? So Linux is one such operating system. For what devices? For what devices this operating system runs? For servers, as I said, a huge banking server connected to a lot of employee machines. For such servers, mainframes, again, high-end servers that runs in the backend in organizations, mainframes, mobile devices, as I said, if you are using Android, Android is a flavor of Linux. So mobile devices and embedded devices. What is embedded device? What are embedded devices? Embedded devices and your smartwatch, right? Next, if you go to, sorry, your routers, Wi-Fi routers, right? And all the digital devices other than, whatever we say, the conventional laptops and tablets, right? Tablets, of course, they are also devices, right? And sorry, motherboard. Motherboard pine operating system run out. So any device that has a motherboard on which, if it is compatible for Linux to run on those devices. So like say traffic signals, traffic system. In traffic systems too, they use mostly operating in those devices. They use mostly a Linux operating system. Handheld scanners. In such areas, you find the operating system that is being widely used is a Linux operating system. Embedded devices and IoT devices, scanners in a car, right? And so on. Those are all falling into the category of embedded devices. Since Linux is compatible to run on any hardware type, Linux is an operating system that we find in all these different devices. Okay. So now, Linux is very best for multi-user multitasking. I just want to prove you this. Let me go create some Linux server console.cloud.google.com. So friends, Linux operating system in practice చేయాలంటే you need a Linux machine. Now what to do? మనం Linux practice చేయాలంటే ఏం చేయాలంటే we need a Linux machine. But now all of us, we got Windows machines, right? All of us, I believe all of your laptops are Windows based. So now what to do? చెప్పండి ఏం చేద్దాం? How to practice Linux then? And you got a laptop which is a Windows based laptop. Yeah, what to do? This is my Windows machine. Very good. So what we do here, we go with a virtualization concept. Maniki, what's a yeah, there is a concept called virtualization. With virtualization, what we do, we add some tool here by the name hypervisor. Okay, hypervisor tool అనేది install చేసుకొని on top of that hypervisor tool, what we do, we add a Linux operating system of our choice. ఇక్కడ మీరు ఒక Linux operating system ని run చేసుకోవచ్చు. Yeah, any Linux operating system of your choice, you can run over here. But this approach, I'm not suggesting you to do. Why is that means? Now already a Windows operating system is running on your laptop and it is consuming your hardware, right? And now this Linux machine too, it's expecting some hardware resources. The operating system hardware and like say some 2 CPUs, right? And 2 GB of RAM, 2 GB RAM, and maybe let's say some 20 GB of hard disk. So when you're giving more hardware resources to this operating system, likewise your Windows also requires more hardware resources, then what happens? Your laptop might get into some trouble. So 2 operating systems మీరు ఒకేసారి రన్ చేస్తే ఒకే ల్యాప్టాప్ పైన, if your hardware is good enough, your laptop has good enough hardware, well and good. But if your laptop is, let's say మీ ల్యాప్టాప్ లో only 4 GB RAM ఉంది, 2 GB మీరు ఇక్కడ డెడికేట్ చేస్తున్నారు లైనక్స్, విండోస్ 2 GB పైన రన్ అవుతుంది. ఆ ప్రాసెస్ లో మీరు ఇంకా వేరే అప్లికేషన్స్ ఏం ఓపెన్ చేసినా కూడా what happens, you find there is a slowness in your laptop and that impacts your what's a laptop hardware and it might get crashed. So అందుకే we are not recommending you to go with this approach. We don't want you to go by this approach. Instead, what we do is we rely on the cloud platform, AWS cloud, Azure cloud, Google platform. So nowadays, cloud computing became very popular, right? Not nowadays, for the past decade, cloud became way too popular. So now what you can do is you can enroll to some, service at AWS level. So you can enroll to some cloud platform like AWS or Azure or Google Cloud Platform. And what you do, you create a server in the cloud. You create some server in the cloud and you can connect to that server in the cloud through your, your laptop, from your laptop via the medium internet. ఇక్కడ మీరు ఒక బ్రౌజర్ నుండి from your laptop, from the browser, what you do, you connect to, or you gain remote access of this server, and you're good to practice Linux by by availing server from the cloud. So you're not troubling your laptop, not installing any operating system. The hardware for that, what's the server is not in your local machine. The cloud vendor is providing you everything, and all you do is just consume it from your machine. And your laptop is now, even though it's very least configured, what happens? You can easily manage to practice your Linux operating system. Okay. So I'll show you how to create a Linux machine for free. All of us, I believe, we got Gmail accounts, right? Gmail ఉన్న ప్రతి ఒక్కరికి ఒక free Linux server ఉందండి. Google provides you with a free Linux server. So we can connect to it. I'll show it shortly. But before we dive into that, I just want to address 2 things. When you're learning something new, you should learn, you should question yourself 2 things. Why there's a 5W1H principle. You have to raise this 5W1H principle. What is 5W1H? Any idea? 5Ws1H. What is this 5W1H principle? మీరు ఏది నేర్చుకుంటున్నా సరే, టెక్నాలజీ or let's say some dance or let's say some piano, whatever you learn, first things first, you should fulfill this 5W1H. Yeah, raising basic questions and like what, where, when, why, how, who. At least you should know these basic questions. మీరు ఇంటర్వ్యూకి వెళ్తున్నా సరే, first you should know, you should question yourself about that company. What is that company all about? Why am I reaching to that company? What position am I applying for the job? Who is the owner of that company? అంతే కదా, మీరు let's say when you went to the interview, if things are not working well, so the interviewer asked, at least వీడికి మన కంపెనీ గురించి ఏం తెలుసు? They're just asking you, what do you know about our company? What do you know about Deloitte and what do you say? మనం అసలు ఆ ప్రిపరేషన్ చేయలేదంటే what happens? we're just getting back with a what's saying? You're just getting back embarrassed, right? But అదే అంటాడు కంపెనీ గురించి కూడా తెలుసుకోకుండా ఎలా వచ్చారు బాబు. Likewise, you're learning Linux this entire. You see, one of your friend asked, why you are learning Linux? But Windows ఉంది కదా. Why are you learning Linux? Or where is Linux used? In which use cases do you find Linux? Or how, if you use Linux, how are you getting benefited? Right? So this is where anything you learn, DevOps low, Git, GitHub, Jenkins, Docker, any tool you learn, first things first, you should know. You should do a self-analysis. 5W1H. Why am I learning Jenkins? What is Jenkins? How Jenkins benefits my organization? Right? And to what extent should I learn Jenkins? All these concepts you should do a self-evaluation. మీకు ఈ కాన్సెప్ట్ నేర్చుకుని మీరు ఏదైనా సబ్జెక్ట్ నేర్చుకుంటే యూ ఫైండ్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ వెరీ మచ్ కాన్ఫిడెంట్. యా
రాజేందర్ నారాయణ్
ఆన్లైన్ టీమ్ సమ్ ఎనీ క్వశ్చన్స్? So friends, now let's understand, let's get these answers first and then we dive into the what's the hands-on part. So first step, what is Linux? We already addressed.
అయిపోయినది మళ్ళీ చూపిస్తున్నారా ఇప్పుడు ఇంకా? వాడు ఎట్లా చూసాడని చెప్తున్నాడు, అంటే ఫస్ట్ లో అది ఒక పాట లాగా వచ్చిందేమో.
So yeah, so what is Linux here? What is Linux? We understood it's an operating system with which we interact with the hardware resources of our machines. And why Linux? Why are we learning Linux? Why Linux means we want multi-user and multitasking activities. So for that, we are relying on Linux operating system. DevOps lo chudandi meeru CI/CD process, continuous integration and continuous delivery process, where the process should continue over and over and over and over again. Continuously process run out. To run that process, your server should run continuously. So in continuous long running activities, you use Linux the most, right? Endukante Windows operating systems, I believe you face this challenge. ఎప్పుడైనా Windows machines లో మీరు ఈ ఎర్రర్ చూసారా? Like when you are running your laptop continuously, all of a sudden your laptop gets into this trouble, right? Overheat అయిపోయి laptops, mostly summer time is in ఈ times లో మీరు చూస్తుంటారు. The CPU, the temperature is high and your laptop gets crashed. Or let's say you're running continuously an operating system. ఏదో ఒక గేమ్ ఆడుతున్నారు, but continuously streaming some video over Netflix. What's happening? Windows operating system, it's exhausted out of RAM and it went into this trouble. Marla trouble the rectify అయ్యే వరకు మీరు operating system తోటి interact అవ్వలేరు. Just imagine you set an entire CI/CD pipeline where Jenkins server is Windows and all of a sudden Jenkins server got crashed. ఇప్పుడు ఏమవుతుందండి? టెస్ట్ యాక్టివిటీస్ అవ్వట్లేదు, ప్రీ ప్రొడక్షన్ కి అప్లికేషన్ వెళ్ళట్లేదు, ప్రొడక్షన్ లెవెల్ కి అప్లికేషన్ వెళ్ళట్లేదు. The server got crashed. Now even though developers are uploading code to GitHub, what's happening here? The code is not pulled, builds are not happening, automated schedules ain't jaragatledu, whole SCM or GitHub, nothing is working, right? So that is where at the operating system level, you need an operating system that runs continuously for a long time. And Linux is proven to run continuously for a long time. Best example ఏంటంటే మీ మొబైల్ ఫోన్స్. Your mobile phone, how often do you switch off your mobile phone? ఎంతమంది ఉన్నారు ఇక్కడ? Like say, I turn on my mobile phone morning 6 o'clock and I switch it off the evening 8 o'clock. No, right? అది చచ్చిపోతుంది, immediate గా చార్జర్ పెట్టేస్తాం and we keep it running 24/7. It keeps on running over and over and over again, right? ఇదివరకు సిమ్ కార్డ్ మార్చేటప్పుడు కనీసం స్విచ్ ఆఫ్ చేసేవాళ్ళం. Now hot swapping, right? We are just taking the SIM card when the operating system is running and we are setting it. In that time, at that time, we are not stopping the operating system of the mobile. And one more example, friends. Just some wow factors I'm giving here. Heard of this rover? A Curiosity rover, which is deployed a decade ago to our nearest planet, Mars. NASA వాళ్ళు handle చేసిన project. Mostly NASA, they send such rovers to other planets. Even we, ISRO, we recently sent Chandrayaan 3, right? So there is a rover. This rover, what it does, it's currently studying the surface of Mars. Other planets surface and study. So It's sending all the information back to them. Now, guess it's millions of kilometers away from us. It takes 7 months of time for NASA to send this rover to nearest planet Mars. And only millions of kilometers దూరంలో ఉంది. And now here scientists, when they're saying turn right, మనం ఇక్కడ ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్ ఇస్తే 20 minutes తర్వాత అక్కడ జరుగుతుంది. Because it takes that long communication. Right? So even today, scientists are getting information from this rover. The pictures, everything. Already 10 decades, sorry, 1 decade, 10 years pine అయింది. Still it's working and it's giving us information from Mars. And if you understand the use case, what operating system is running here, the operating system that running is a Linux operating system. But that continuously run without any downtime. So in such areas where you want your servers to be running 24/7 all the time, organizations rely either on Unix operating systems or Linux operating systems. Unix, Unix వెళ్ళొచ్చు. If you are budget constrained, you can go with Linux operating systems, right? So this way, there are areas అట్లనే చూడండి, they talk about stock exchange. Stock exchange here, if you look at these screens, they keep on projecting the information. ఒక్క సెకండ్ అవి ఆగిపోయినా కూడా what happens? There is a huge distraction. అంటే నేను ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తున్నాను. Whenever there's some there's some spike in some stock, I'm going to invest on it. See, stock brokers under they're always looking at those things, and the information should furnish over there continuous. In such areas too, you find the operating systems being widely used, Linux operating systems. And my personal experience, when I was back in UAE, RT of Dubai, the entire transportation system, the metro rails, the buses, the tram, everything is interlinked with one card. A smart card? You get into the bus, you do a swipe, and immediately a transaction gets recorded. And millions of travelers or millions of passengers are commuting through these different areas. అంతమంది ట్రాన్స్పోర్ట్ ట్రావెల్ అవుతున్నా కూడా the applications never go down. Why is that? Means the operating system they're using are mostly Sun Solaris. ప్రతి బస్సు వెనుక ఒక టెర్మినల్ ఉంటుందండి, సోలారిస్ టెర్మినల్, that immediately captures when you are getting into the bus, it captures that you entered the bus. The swipe చేయగానే మీ అమౌంట్ డిడక్ట్ అయిపోతుంది కార్డ్. Likewise, the metro rails of Japan, even here in India, we are using the entire metro system, they are using Linux operating systems. Why is that? Means in continuous long running activities, we need the operating system that supports that nature. అట్లా కాకుండా ఇట్లా ఫెయిల్ అయింది అనుకోండి, what happens? Again, troubleshooting all that and again getting back to track, it takes a lot of time. Our process లో what's happening there, companies are losing their business. So at operating system level, we need such a high availability. So that's where we are learning Linux. Why Linux? And the answer is that. Now, who developed Linux? Yeah, Marla, who developed Linux? Linus Torvalds, his name is Linus Torvalds. He is the one who created a core component called kernel. And from that, Linux operating system got evolved, and there are now various distributions of Linux. Next, where is Linux used? అంటే మనం ఆల్రెడీ మాట్లాడేస్తున్నాం. Where is Linux used? NASA uses Linux. All the MNCs use Linux, right? And we saw some use cases. Why? అంటే because of its reliable nature, because it keeps on running for a long time, we're using Linux. Next, how in real world Linux helps me? ఈ క్వశ్చన్ ఇట్లా పెడదామండి. Like let's say, how Linux helps me. So మనం ఒక స్టార్ట్అప్ పెడదాం అనుకుంటాం. We are all planning a startup company. And now to purchase a huge hardware, Unix related operating system, it's costing us a lot. Thereby, what we are doing, we are relying on Linux operating systems, and we are purchasing or we are relying on the cloud platform and using Linux operating systems. Cloud lo మనకి hardware ఇస్తున్నాడు. In that hardware, we are running Linux machines, and thereby we are not getting charged, or we are getting very less amount of investment here. We are doing very less amount of investment. Right? What, where, when, why? What I mean, why, who, where, when. Okay. Yeah, when to use Linux? When to use Linux? So then, chip and answer. When to use Linux? when you have projects where you want to do continuous long running activities, in such areas you got to rely on Linux operating systems. E5W1H analysis is very important. Followed by that, there is one more thing that you got to remember. ఇది కూడా ఒక్కటి మనం గుర్తుపెట్టుకుని we'll dive into the hands on it. Since you are learning something new effective today, to make your learning process better, there are 4 key points that you should remember. Everyone, whoever are learning something new, you should remember 4 key points. ఎందుకంటే as learners, what we do a lot of mistakes. అది నేర్చేసుకోవాలి and మనం ఎక్స్పర్ట్ అయిపోవాలని చెప్పి we put lot of effort and we don't follow some procedure. Like say friends, in the month of January, what happens? All of us, or maybe some of the fitness freaks, what do? They enroll to the gym. ఈ జిమ్ వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తారంటే they put all such what's a model pictures over there. Hrithik Roshan వీళ్ళందరి photos పెడతారు. And when we go, we want to become like that. And we invest money. We just go and pay money. 1 year membership or 2 years membership, we pay. And what we do, day one you went, and without any proper guidance, you're hitting all the weights over there. And a technique like you're just pulling all the weights, and day one అయిపోయింది. Day 2 excitement తో అట్లనే చేశారు. Day 3 you're having severe body pains and you're not hitting the gym again. And then you start chasing the journey, it's with a very good intention. You wanted to become fit. You want to be a flexible guy. You want to be strong. With that intention, you started. You did not follow some structure, some approach. Initially, the start is not. You have to start with a minute exercises, minimal exercises. Followed by that, you should go with some intermediary level exercises. Then you got to put over weights, and then you should do exercise. కాకపోతే మీరు ఏం చేస్తున్నారంటే success won't come overnight, right? Success won't come overnight. Even see the gym, what are the model pictures they put over there? వాళ్ళందరికీ bodies అనేవి they did not get overnight, right? They put a lot of effort, and that's where they succeeded in getting such bigger bodies. Now here friends, as a learner, the very first thing that you got to do is deconstruct the skill. And మీరు ఏదైనా నేర్చుకుంటున్నప్పుడు the very first thing is don't go fall into it and learn everything. ఫస్ట్ మనం అదే చేస్తామండి. ఫస్ట్ మీరు ఇక్కడ క్లాస్ ఏదో నేర్చుకుంటారు, వెంటనే యూట్యూబ్కి వెళ్ళి వేరే ఏదో చూస్తారు, రైట్? ఆఫ్టర్ దట్ యూ వాంట్ టు ఎవాల్వ్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ మోర్ ఫాస్టర్. దట్ ఇస్ అ మిస్టేక్. డోంట్ డు దట్. ఫస్ట్ యూ షుడ్ నో వాట్ ఆర్ ద బేసిక్స్. DevOps నేర్చుకున్నప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తున్నాము? ఫస్ట్ యూ షుడ్ లెర్న్ Linux operating system. Then you're learning Git and GitHub. Followed by that, you're learning Jenkins, right? Prior to that, you're learning Maven, Nexus, Tomcat, SonarQube. After that, Docker Swarm, Kubernetes, Terraform, Ansible, and so on. Right? In a structural way, your trainers are teaching you DevOps. Right? So now, if you don't follow that, and you just, let's say, you picked some tool at random. ఇవాళ నుంచి నేను DevOps నేర్చుకోవాలి. సో మీరు ఫస్ట్ పిక్ చేసుకున్న టూల్ Kubernetes. ఇంటర్నెట్కి వెళ్ళారు, జస్ట్ 2-3 సెషన్స్ చూసారు Kubernetes. వాట్స్ హ్యాపెనింగ్? మనతో అయ్యే పని కాదని చెప్పి you're dropping off. Why is that? Without having any proper knowledge, you started off learning something higher one. And thereby what's happening? You're just giving it up. So when you are learning something, deconstruct it, meaning break it down, identify your basics. First learn the basics, next learn the intermediary concepts, and then the expert level concepts. So Linux ki మనం ఏం చేయాలంటే first we should know the basics. అసలు command అంటే what is the terminal, what is the shell, what are the different basic commands you should explore first, and then we got to get into administration concepts. Followed by that, we got to get into shell scripting concepts. Okay, ఇలా ఒక స్ట్రక్చర్ లో నేర్చుకోవాలి. నెక్స్ట్ learn enough to self correct. Learn enough to self correct. What does that mean? Whatever is required for you to learn, you should learn only that. DevOps engineers use Linux. Big data analysts use Linux. Data scientists use Linux, right? NASA scientists use Linux. So what level are we? We are learning Linux because we want to become DevOps engineers. So a DevOps engineer's perspective of Linux is sufficient for us. And again, a NASA scientist who had a Linux or a data scientist used as a Linux concept, right? So to achieve our goal, what is required? You should learn only that, rather than putting all effort over there and troubling yourself. Always ensure what is required for you, learn only. Don't go deeper into the subject right at the beginning. If a goal ఉన్నప్పుడు ఆ goal కి మాత్రమే మీరు try చేయండి. Don't go deeper into. Next, remove practice barriers. What does that mean? నేర్చుకుంటే సరిపోతుందా? ప్రాక్టీస్ చేయాలి. When you are practicing enough, make sure that you are not distracted from other aspects. చక్కగా ప్రాక్టీస్ చేస్తున్నారు, ఒక మొబైల్ నోటిఫికేషన్ ఏంటని చూస్తే ఫ్రెండ్ కాలింగ్ యూ టు హ్యావ్ సమ్ టీ. ప్రాక్టీస్ పక్కన పెట్టేసారు, వెళ్ళిపోయారు. అండ్ అగైన్ కేమ్ బ్యాక్. బై దెన్ వాట్ హ్యాపెన్? యువర్ మోటివ్ ఈస్ గెటింగ్ డిస్ట్రాక్టెడ్. మళ్ళీ మీరు తిరిగి వచ్చిన తర్వాత ప్రాక్టీస్ చేస్తారని గ్యారంటీ లేదు. సో వెన్ యూఆర్ ప్రాక్టీసింగ్, మేక్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ కంఫర్టబుల్. నెక్స్ట్ 25 minutes నేను అసలు ఎక్కడికి కదలకూడదు, ప్రాక్టీస్ చేసే తీరాలి. టిల్ దెన్ వాట్ యూ డూ, కీప్ యువర్ మొబైల్ ఫోన్ అసైడ్, స్విచ్ ఇట్ ఆఫ్ ఆర్ కీప్ ఇట్ ఇన్ సైలెంట్ మోడ్, డోంట్ టచ్ ఇట్. ఒక అలారం పెట్టుకోండి 25 minutes కి. పోమోడోరో టెక్నిక్ గుర్తుందా? సో మూవీలో కూడా వచ్చే ఐ థింక్ యు నో ఇట్. సో ఏదో మూవీ ఉందండి, జూనియర్ ఎన్టీఆర్స్ మూవీ, వేర్ హి సే పోమోడోరో టెక్నిక్ వాడమంటాడు ఆయన. లైక్ 25 minutes ఆఫ్ టైం మీరు సెట్ చేసుకుని, ఆ 25 minutes మీకు సంబంధం లేదు, ఇంకా ఎక్స్టర్నల్ వరల్డ్ తో సంబంధం లేదు. యూ షుడ్ ఫోకస్ ఆన్ వాట్ యూఆర్ లెర్నింగ్. ఆ 25 minutes తర్వాత వెళ్ళండి, వాట్ ఎవర్ యూ వాంట్ టు డూ, వాట్ ఎవర్ ద అదర్ ఆస్పెక్ట్స్ యూ వాంట్ టు గో విత్, ఆఫ్టర్ 25 minutes డూ ఇట్. అలాంటి సెషన్స్ ఒక 2-3 పెట్టుకోండి. ఒక 2-3 చాలు, నథింగ్ మోర్, రైట్? 25 minutes of a class, sorry, of a session where you are completely focusing, learning things. After that, take a break and again come back and take a 25-minute session where you should not get distracted for the next 25 minutes. అలా రోజుకి మీ క్లాస్ అయిపోయాక 2-3 సెషన్స్ మీరు అట్లా పెట్టుకుంటే you're removing all your practice barriers and you're getting enough of practice, right? And finally, fourth key point is practice 20 hours.
క్లాస్ అంటే అదేలే ఇది.
Practice 20 hours on the skill, meaning what's saying, once you're done with your course, you got to ensure that you practice for a 20 hours of time duration. Not 20 hours a day, or complete 20 hours పెట్టుకోవాలండి. Let's say you learned DevOps or you learned some course. Now you have to schedule a 20-hour time duration to practice. A practice లో ఎట్లా అంటే, first you practice with some tool, don't repeat it. 20 hours, let's say for some 5 hours, you practice it some subject. CI/CD practice చేశారు, మళ్ళీ అది రిపీట్ చేయకండి. నెక్స్ట్ 15 hours you have to practice something new. అట్లా you got to complete a timeline of 20 hours practicing new concepts. So thereby you gain lot of insights from what you learn. Okay, ఇది మీరు ఇప్పుడు కదండి, ఇది once you're done with the course, then you have to do this 20 hours. You got to self do it. Okay, these are the 4 key points that help you in doing things faster or learning things faster. Okay, so now enough friends, enough with this discussion. Let's now dive into Linux operating systems. So right at the beginning, when I asked Linux, one of you said it's a command line operating system. And command line kadandi, it's an operating system that has graphical interface too. Linux operating system ki graphical interface kuda undi. Manam Windows ela aithe start cheyangani oka desktop vastundo, similarly Linux operating systems do have a UI. Itla Linux ki kuda UI undi. It's a Linux machine, right? The beautiful interfaces. Konni Linux machines etla untayante, they are very much close to Windows machine. మీకు విండోస్ లుక్ అండ్ ఫీల్ వస్తుంది లైనక్స్ ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ రన్ చేస్తున్నప్పుడు, రైట్? సో దెర్ ఇస్ అన్ ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్ కాల్డ్ లైనక్స్ మింట్. చూసారా ఎట్లా ఉంది ఇది? ఎగ్జాక్ట్లీ సిమిలర్ టు విండోస్ మిషన్. సారీ, ఐ థింక్ దిస్ ఇస్ విండోస్ మిషన్ ఓన్లీ. లెట్ మీ జస్ట్ లైనక్స్ మింట్ చూపిద్దాం. సారీ, లైనక్స్ మింట్ అనే ఆపరేటింగ్ సిస్టమ్, it pretty much reflects the same like Windows machine. Start menu, a desktop, right? So very much similar to a Windows machine, but this is a Linux machine. Okay, so Linux operating systems do have a graphical interface, but in real time nobody gives you a graphical interface of Linux. They give you command line of Linux, which you have to, where you have to write commands and do everything. So in a graphical interface, what we do, friends, now let's say this is my desktop, and on my desktop, if I were to, yeah friends, let's say this is my desktop, and on my desktop I want to create a folder. What I do, just right click, new folder, and a folder create. Yeah, and I want to copy something and paste somewhere else. ఈ mouse keyboard తోటి మీరు what you're doing, you're just doing everything with a graphical interface. But coming to Linux operating systems do have a GUI, but we are not given access to it. We are given access only to the command line interface. So ఇంతకు ముందు చెప్పాను కదండి, Linux operating systems, every Gmail user is provided with a Linux machine. Let me walk you through it. See friends, just go to Google and here type console.cloud.google.com. Yeah, just go to your browser and type console.cloud.google.com. And once you type here, you're asked, and then already login with my Gmail. When you go to this page for the first time, what happens is you're asked, enter your email address, enter your password. Just my Gmail address, password type change. And you find a page something like this. Once this page is loaded, welcome. And once you get a page like this, you are at Google Cloud level, where at the top, if you observe, there are some icons, right? Just click on the square box at the top. Activate Cloud Shell. Icon click cheste meeku, you get a free Linux server offered by Google. It's that simple. Mirem virtual machines install chesi Linux code. Don't go to any hardware guy and say like remove Windows and install Linux. Don't do that. Okay, we got a free Linux machine. Just you go to consolecloudgoogle.com, log in with your Gmail account, and you just activate this Cloud Shell. And what are the black screen you are finding down below? This is a Linux machine. This is a Linux operating system. Now you're good to write your commands here and interact with Linux operating system. So Windows low, just for our comparison here, if I were to create a folder, I just right click here, new folder, folder already create out, right? I say this is the new folder that got created. Now I want to get into the folder. What should I do? Double click chestunde, I'm getting into that folder. If I don't want it, what I do, I just go and close it, and we're done. But in a Linux machine, when you're assigned with a terminal, everything you have to do with the help of commands. ఒక folder create చేయాలన్నా command రాయాలి, ఒక folder లోపలికి వెళ్ళాలన్నా command రాయాలి. If you want to get out, you should write a command, right? And there are a lot of commands that you got to write in a terminal. So what are the black screen you are finding now? This is called as a terminal. And in this terminal, you should write only commands, right? See friends, now I'm typing letter A here, and I just hit tab twice. So these are all the commands that begin with letter A. Again, let me remove letter and typing just B, and I'm hitting tab twice here. These are all the commands in Linux that begin with letter B. Atlane C. You can find there are hell lot of commands in Linux. Hundreds and hundreds of commands in my Linux. But again, don't freak out. We are not learning all these. What did I say before? The gym kelinapudu, let's say, your main intention is to do weight loss or cardio. A gym lo any equipment unna kuda, what you do, you are supposed to do only the items that belong to you, or that fulfill your requirement. Likewise, as a DevOps engineer, what commands are required for us to learn here? We should learn only them. No need of learning everything. Yeah, don't worry. We don't need to learn or remember all these commands. But what to understand, in a Linux operating system, in organizations, you are provided with a Linux operating system that is command-based law. There are Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform. ఈ టూల్స్ వెళ్ళినప్పుడు కూడా మీరు మీ యాక్టివిటీస్ అన్ని కూడా ఈ టెర్మినల్ నుండే చేస్తారు. You're not given a graphical interface. So as a DevOps engineer, it's a very important thing that you should know you should know how Linux operating system works at command level or at terminal level. So let's understand this, friends. So remember, ఈ particular black screen ni మనం ఏమంటామంటే, this is called as a terminal, where you interact with your Linux operating system. So what is a terminal and a question of state? A terminal is a resource that allows you to interact with your Linux operating system. It's a gateway to interact with your Linux machine. ఈ Linux server లో మీకు ఎంత స్టోరేజ్ ఉంది తెలుసుకోవాలంటే you have to write a command, something like ఈ Linux server లో ఎంత RAM మనకి assign అయింది. If you want to find, again you have to write a command. Everything, whatever the information that you want to grasp from this server, for everything you should write some equivalent command. Yeah. Now I want to create a folder. దానికి ఒక command mkdir ఒక folder create out, right? If I want to find whether the folder is created or not, again, ls command can be found. Yes, there is a directory one created. Right, so for every activity you want to perform in this Linux machine, when you're given a command line access, you have to write only commands. Right, Tim? So now, excuse me, how do I know those? How do we know those commands? And that is where we are conducting these classes to understand some commands in the days to come. కాకపోతే ఇక్కడ మీరు అర్థం చేసుకోవాల్సింది ఏంటంటే you should write only commands in a terminal. If I type my name, what happens? Command not found, right? If I type one of your names, let's say Swaroop here, command not found. So you are supposed to type only commands in a terminal because a terminal understands only the language commands. Okay. Now, when you write a command, what happens? When we write a command, what happens in a Linux machine? Let's understand. Then we go chin example. Let me just draw.io. Draw.io. And yeah, friends. So, say for example, I went to a hotel and I'm ordering some food. I went to a hotel. Now, let's say you are the user here. I went to a hotel. Now, some waiter approached me. Let's say this is some interface. I went to a hotel, and now some waiter approached me and he asked, "Sir, what do you want?" Okay, now let's say here is the guy. He is the waiter. He's waiter. He's asking me, "What do you want?" And he provided me a menu. And from that menu, I'm saying I need some, let's say, biryani. So now what's happening? The waiter is now he is walking towards the kitchen. This guy is walking towards the kitchen and he's meeting a chef there. A chef ki చెప్తున్నాడు ఏంటంటే I need some biryani. And what's happening? The chef prepares the food and gives it to the waiter. And now what happens? The waiter brings the food back to our table, right? So similarly, now have a look, friends. Commands are the menu of the hotel. Just think of that way. Commands are a hotel menu. You should order, when you go to a hotel, you should order food only what is available in their menu. If you type something, if you ask for something out of their menu, what do? They just simply say, no, sir, we are not offering such food, right? So similarly, now this is a terminal. Just think of this terminal as a waiter. He is expecting you to give something, order something. And you're saying, echo, hello world, command raster. Now, actually, what happens is this terminal, sorry, the command that you type it here, this terminal takes that command to something else. And I think there is something called what's a shell interpreter. ఇంటర్నల్ గా కాంపోనెంట్ ఉందండి ఇంటర్ప్రిటర్. ఈ కమాండ్ ఏం చేస్తుందండి ఈ టెర్మినల్ ఆ ఇంటర్ప్రిటర్ and that interpreter processes that command and gives the result back to the terminal. So see now we are getting the result back on the terminal. Okay, so just remember this. In a terminal you should write only commands. And okay, hotel ki velte manam we should order only the food out of their menu. So here I'm saying mkdir hello. This is a command valid. Now this command is given by the terminal to shell. Shell puts the command and gives us the result back. So now you can find here, if I issue ls command, see there is a directory created by the name hello. So meeku marla ikkada oka interview question undandi. What is the difference between a command terminal and a shell? What is a command? What is a terminal? What is a shell? So how do we answer that? Means waiter ila cheppandi. They don't accept it. So commands are nothing but a command is a piece of plain text that has a predefined meaning. Command is nothing but a piece of plain text that got some predefined meaning. Next step, terminal. What is a terminal? A terminal is a gateway to interact with Linux operating system. Terminal is nothing but a gateway to interact with the Linux operating system. Now, shell. A shell is an interpreter in the background that interprets the command. Interprets the command. INTER. interprets the command. Interpreter, what it does, a shell interpreter interprets the command in the backend and gives us the result back onto the screen. Excuse me. So these are the different parts of a Linux terminal. So this black screen is a terminal where you write commands, and commands are processed internally by a interpreter. Okay. So now, friends, excuse me. So now, few things when you write commands. Linux commands are case sensitive. What does that mean? Case sensitive on the engine. Case sensitive on day. Say now here, mkdir, one of your names, Neha. Neha. N-E-H-A, Neha. Okay, fine. So mkdir, Neha. I'm creating a folder by the name Neha. And if I issue ls command, see a folder by the name Neha is created. Now again, I'm saying mkdir, N-E-H-A. All typed in uppercase, enter. Now Linux creates one more folder for you with the same name. Because Linux treating this directory name here, Neha, different when compared to the other directory name, Neha. Now again, mkdir, N in caps, E-H-A in lowercase. mkdir, N-E in caps, H-A in lowercase. mkdir, N-E-H-A in lowercase. mkdir, N in lowercase, E-H-A in uppercase. So the same name I'm typing over and over and over again. And Linux is also creating as multiple directories over and over again. Why is that? Means Linux operating systems are case sensitive. కానీ అదే Windows లో చేశారనుకోండి, Windows ఒప్పుకోదండి. It doesn't agree to. It's a new folder here. I'm creating a folder by the name, let's say Neha. Let me show you. See here, I already created a folder by the name Neha. And what am I doing? I'm renaming this folder. It could not folder name. I'm typing it as N-E-H-A. Everything in uppercase. Now, if you hit enter, what's happening here? What is the error given? The destination already contains a folder by the name Neha. Yeah, true. But the name is in lowercase. Here I'm typing in uppercase. But Windows is not accepting. Windows operating systems, they rely on the name. మీరు ఒక ఫోల్డర్ ఒక నేమ్ ఇచ్చారంటే మళ్ళీ అదే ఫోల్డర్ వేరే నేమ్ సేమ్ నేమ్ కేసింగ్ మార్చినా కూడా విండోస్ ఇట్ వోంట్ యాక్సెప్ట్. బట్ లైనక్స్ ఆన్ ద అదర్ హ్యాండ్ it's an operating system that is open source. That is case sensitive. అంటే మీరు ఇప్పుడు let's say mkdir command, and here I'm saying instead of typing mkdir in lowercase, mkdir and type in uppercase, and I'm saying Prashant. Now what happens? The directory gets created or not? No? No, because Linux is looking for a command with lowercase only. If a command may adi lowercase lone consider chestundi, but you are typing it in uppercase, thereby your command is failing. Right? So Linux operating systems are case sensitive. Okay. So this is one quick thing that you got to remember. And కొన్నిసార్లు students say, sir, we are writing a valid command, but it's not working. And మీరు చెక్ చేసుకోవాల్సింది ఏంటంటే which casing are you using, right? So mostly commands are all in lowercase only. So to ensure that you are typing the commands in lowercase only. Okay. And next, when writing commands, these are some of the commands that we have written. Now let's see, friends, how to create some folders. Already choose some. There's a command called mkdir with which we create a folder. Let's say mkdir, and here I'm saying DevOps. And what happened? A folder got created. If we issue ls command. ls and what is data present over there? It just lists you of that ls. So here you can find there's a folder created by the name DevOps. Now inside the DevOps folder, I want to create some more folders, subfolders like Git, Jenkins, Maven, Docker, Kubernetes, etc. So how are we going to create folders, subfolders inside this folder? In DevOps లోపల ఇంకా కొన్ని folders create చేయాలి. Now what to do? We have to get into this folder. So how do we get into that folder? Means there's a command cd to change the directory and say DevOps. Now we are inside the DevOps folder, and currently that DevOps folder is empty. Shouldn't it? ls command is not giving me any data. Now I want to create some subfolders. Then what should we do? mkdir చెప్పండి git tools ఏమన్నాయి సారీ DevOps tools ఏమన్నాయి git తర్వాత jenkins క్రియేట్ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నాను now what should I do yeah mkdir git after that ఎంటర్ చేసి మరలా mkdir టైప్ చేద్దామా jenkins మరలా mkdir అట్లా వెళ్దామా no you can simply say mkdir git jenkins అయిపోయినవి now let's say docker space kubernetes space ansible space terraform space maven space nexus space tomcat space sonar cube enter in one go what happened there multiple directories are created okay so linux understands that when you're adding a space here linux treats this docker as a directory and this one as a directory కాకపోతే ఇక్కడ నేను mkdir docker swarm అంటే I want to create a directory by the name docker swarm now what happens docker separate then swarm separate the create out but I don't want that I want both of them to be one single directory name so nothing to worry here all you got to do is enclose that directory name in double quotes అంతే ఆ డబుల్ కోట్స్ లో పెడితే మీకు సి డాకర్ స్వామ్ ఇస్ వన్ సింగిల్ డైరెక్టరీ ఇదంతా ఒక సింగిల్ డైరెక్టరీ నెక్స్ట్ సే ఫ్రెండ్స్ ఐ వాంట్ టు క్రియేట్ సమ్ డైరెక్టరీస్ లైక్ ఎంప్లాయీ 1 ఎంప్లాయీ 2 3 4 5 say till employee 10 what is the command now mkdir yeah employee 1 space employee 2 space like that shall we go till employee 10 right shall we go by that way so atla will let's say we created 10 kaapothe 100 annaru next we wanted 100 directories then what to do instead of this we go by a concept called brace expansion here where you open a curly brace say 1 dot dot till what extent do you want your directories let's say 100 mkdir employee 1 dot dot 100 once we hit enter what happened we're getting 100 directories created in one group employee 1 2 3 4 5 6 అట్లా 100 directories ఒకసారి క్రియేట్ అయ్యింది సో మీకు ఈ బ్లాక్ స్క్రీన్ నచ్చట్లేదు అనుకోండి లైక్ ద కమాండ్ లైన్ యూఆర్ నాట్ ఫైండింగ్ ఇట్ వాట్స్ ఇంట్రెస్టింగ్ ఆల్ ఐ కెన్ హెల్ప్ యూ ఫర్ నౌ ఇస్ జస్ట్ గో టు దిస్ సెట్టింగ్స్ బార్ ఈ ప్రిఫరెన్సెస్ లోకి వెళ్ళి కలర్ థీమ్స్ వెళ్ళి ఈ లైట్ చేసుకోండి అంతే ఐ కెనాట్ హెల్ప్ యూ అదర్ దాన్ దట్ కాకపోతే కమాండ్ లైన్ నేర్చుకుంటే మీకు గ్రాఫికల్ ఇంటర్ఫేస్ చాలా ఈజీ అవుతుంది see now the same thing if we were to do on a windows machine employee 1 employee 2 employee 3 atla 100 directories create cheyali meer right click chesi new folder antaru employee 1 marla right click chesi new folder employee 2 if you do so till 100 what happens that takes around some 30 minutes or 40 minutes of time కాకపోతే ఇక్కడ లైనక్స్ లో ఏం చేస్తున్నారు you're just writing a simple command and it's doing all the tasks for you say mkdir let's say student and here 1 dot dot 1000 and once you hit enter that is it what happened now student 1 student 2 3 4 5 like that 1000 directories got created in one. Right so linux operating system terminals are that powerful command line interface మీరు నేర్చుకుంటే you can do things way much faster than the graphical interfaces at times okay now to get rid of all these we created a lot of folders I don't want them. I want to delete all of them. Now, what to do? What is the command, friends, to delete content? Folders create cheyalante Linux lo command name rmdir. Let me just clear this here. We got a command by the name rmdir. rmdir. rmdir for remove a directory. Okay. Now, rmdir అని చెప్పి నేను ఇక్కడ star అంటున్నాను. What does that mean? Remove everything. Star and a star means everything. Whatever are present in that location, I want to get rid of everything. And once you hit enter, మీరు ఏవైతే డైరెక్టరీస్ క్రియేట్ చేశారో అవన్నీ కూడా they got completely deleted. See, ls now my DevOps folder is empty, no data, nothing. Right? And now, as beginners, we may have questions like what is mkdir? అసలు mkdir command ఏంటి? rmdir command ఏంటి? ls అంటే ఏంటి? So in such cases, you can use a quick help tool. What is and type chesi command type cheyandi ikkada what is mkdir are you getting any response here see oops sorry let me just yeah are we getting any response mkdir is a command what is it for make directories what is rmdir let's say rmdir is a command to remove empty directories What is ls? ls is a command to list out directories. So online candidates, please remain on mute. So this way, what we got, we can simply identify. Yeah. So we can easily identify which command is intended for what purpose with the command what is and type చేసి the command name. If you type that is you getting the response. అట్లాగే మనకి man అనే command ఉంది. It's a manual page. Man is a command that opens the manual page for every command. So if I say man space mkdir, ఇంకో complete listing వస్తుంది like how to use that command. What are the features that you can include in that command? Everything you find it here. And this is a manual page for your command. So for your command mkdir. ఇలా ప్రతి command కి కూడా manual page ఉంది. So from here you can use some of these options and you can enhance your command writing skill. And చూడండి ఇక్కడ let me just say I'm creating a folder mkdir and let's create a folder by the name here Prashant for now. When I'm running the command, what's happening once I hit enter, the command is executed successfully, yes or no? Yes. ఎట్లా చెప్తున్నారు? How you are saying it is successful? ఏ ఎర్రర్ త్రో చేయట్లేదు కాబట్టి సక్సెస్ఫుల్. ఓకే ఫైన్. బట్ ఐ వాంట్ టు నో వెదర్ ఇట్ ఈస్ డన్ ఆర్ నాట్. సో అలాంటప్పుడు మీరు ఏం చేయొచ్చు అంటే mkdir కమాండ్ కి -v ఆప్షన్ యాడ్ చేయాలి. I want Linux to acknowledge me back whether it is creating a folder or not. mkdir -v says Swaroop. And once we hit enter, చూడండి ఇప్పుడు ఇంతకు ముందు క్రియేట్ చేసినప్పుడు లైనక్స్ నాకు ఏం ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ ఇవ్వలేదు, ఎర్రర్ రాలేదు కాబట్టి ఆ ఫోల్డర్ క్రియేట్ అయిందని సరిపెట్టుకున్నాం. బట్ నౌ నో నీడ్, you said mkdir -v and now Linux, what is it saying? What is the task it did? It's mentioning us back saying, yes, I created a folder for you by the name Swaroop. Okay. Likewise, rmdir -v Prashant. rmdir -v Prashant. And again, it acknowledges back saying that I'm removing the directory. Okay. So likewise, friends, like that, we have a lot of options for every command. ప్రతి command కి కూడా ఒక manual page ఉంటుంది. ఆ manual page ద్వారా మనం ఇంకా additional options అనేవి we can include in our commands. Okay. So, see now, man space ls command. This is the ls command and this is all the listing of the different options in ls command. Right. So what we do is, team, today, since it's the very first day, we'll stop it for today. I think you're all exhausted. So we'll stop it for now and we'll continue tomorrow. In the session tomorrow, I'll introduce you to what's a AWS cloud. We create a server at AWS cloud level, connect to it, and carry out our Linux operations over there. Okay. Linux operating systems are very best for multi-user and multitasking. I'll justify that with an example. మీలో కొంతమందికి ఒక Linux లో కొన్ని user accounts create చేసి we'll all work together on that Linux machine. Okay, we'll see that hands-on and let's justify whether Linux operating systems are very best for multi-user and multitasking or not. Okay, let's get it done tomorrow. Yeah, and make only just not to give you the information and show you some hands-on examples to prove you that Linux, why should we use it, and is it really important to use Linux operating systems or not? Okay, that is all, friends, for today. Let's wind it up a bit early, and I'll see you in the next class. Sharp 4 o'clock, we'll continue our class tomorrow. Yeah. Any questions, team?
Prashant, if we type dir, so if the folder contains any files, so shall it remove or we need to use any other command for the same? Hello? Prashant?